What's the currently lowest ranked player that could beat 2015 Armada in a best of 5? That's a question that a Reddit user has asked the subreddit recently. And there's been more discussion springing up from this that I want to talk about and give my own take on. So this first discussion was just the question of what's the currently lowest ranked player that has an over 50% chance of winning a best of 5 against Prime 2015 Armada. Just imagine you take a player from 2024 and you time travel them back into 2015 and challenge Armada to a money match. For this hypothetical, I think we're assuming that even though they weren't playing on the current version of the game yet, they didn't have UCF back then, I would assume that we're thinking that that would still exist for the current day player, right? And sure, we can also have it exist for Armada, but just because there's some disparity there in the game version being played and how easy some tech is to execute because of it, yeah, I think we're talking about like a 2024 player going back in time with their current controller, working the way it does in 2024, playing against 2015 Armada. Cool. So what do the people think here, right? Because if we think about it, 2015 is a pretty long time ago, and I actually have some 2015 Armada gameplay lined up for you here. This is Smash Summit 1, and this is Grand Finals, where Armada beat Mango's Falco 3-2 to take the tournament. And I'm going to be reading some of the responses here that the Reddit users gave in this thread that was created 1 day ago. So the first comment we're seeing here is that FunCancel says a very safe answer is S2J, who is currently ranked 34th on the SSBM Summer rank. He was a couple of choices away from 3-0ing Armada back in 2017, so if he has another roughly 9 years of meta improvements and experience, then he should probably win. They also say that an even lower pick, in this case 2 Saint, might also be a safe choice. What do people think about this? Most people, so the first response is over 50% chance of beating Armada, doubtful. Okay, so we have a player who went to Game 5 with Armada in 2017, and now we give that player like 9 years more experience or so. In this case, it would be 4. Yeah, it would be 4 more years. It would be 7 more years of experience, sorry. And with those 7 more years, like, do we think they could beat Armada from 2 years prior to when those two players went to Game 5? And people are still doubting that. People are still like, yeah, I think Armada would figure it out, right? Another response to that is, that goes along with this is, I mean, almost beating Armada one set doesn't really paint a proper picture of their matchup history. Like, usually Armada very, very convincingly 3-0'd S2J. See more like a lucky couple of games than S2J actually being close to taking a set. Alright, so sure, he went to Game 5 in 2017, but maybe that was just 2 lucky games and then Armada pulled through and just, reverse 3-0'd him and never lost to him after. But to be fair, Armada did not play for that much longer after. Armada started playing in, I think the first recorded tournaments are in like 2007, became the best player in Europe in 2008, 2009, and then never really, stopped being the best European player in the world, except for like arguably some stretch of time where Leffen might have had better results for like half a year, but Armada for all of that time was one of the best players in the world and the best player in Europe. Alright, so the next full response in this thread is the Armada disrespect is crazy. So this is once again showing that people really, really believe in Armada, even when we're talking about Armada from 2015, which is almost 10 years ago now, right? Like, that's 9 years ago, and like I said earlier, just the way the game is played has changed, right? The way people practice have changed dramatically. We now have the 20XX training pack, like a very good version of it. We have the Uncle Pun training mode. We have easily accessible online play that is really, really good. But people still think that Armada could have a good shot against a lot of these like top 50 ranked players. So 2015 Armada to be precise. So one response to this comment saying the Armada disrespect is crazy states that it's not like they said 2018 Armada. If you don't realize that 2015 Armada was in fact much worse than 2018 Armada, you just don't understand meta development. People are trying to give realistic estimates based on the level of the gods play back then. Only the people in this thread giving out answers like preeminent would beat Armada are being disrespectful like that. And that's crazy. So this person is saying that preeminent, having an above 50% chance of beating Armada, 2015 Armada, is disrespectful to Armada. And if we look at like the rankings, like summer ranks, the summer rank of this year, Preeminent was ranked 49th, right? That's pretty damn good, you know? We even see here that some other players like Toussaint, you know, who was another pick from someone else, is ranked 43rd. So yeah, would the 49th player of 2024 have a good shot of beating 2015 Armada? I personally think so, just because of how much the game has advanced. Like, people use the melee fundamental tools that they get from the game much better. People have gotten a lot better at just stage positioning. Recovery has gotten a lot better. Defensive game, so combo DI has gotten way better. Just execution overall, like, you know, some stuff we saw from the set was just like, you know, people being slightly slow in some situations, like getting hit and then getting stuck in their movement for a very short amount of time, or like getting a hit and then being slightly slow on the follow-up. Yeah, I think, you know, I think Preeminent from 2024, a top 50 ranked player, would probably have an above 50% chance of beating 2015 Armada. But yeah, let's see what else Reddit has to say about it. Alright, so then someone says, are you implying 2024 Toussaint is better than 2015 HBox? I'd say not. I don't want to get into like another debate with another one of the gods, because we're going to get into Armada versus Triff right after this one. Alright, yeah, here's the first person who says, why do people still doubt the effects that access to 24/7 melee practice had on the meta? Very true. I think just what I said, the tools have gotten so much better, and because of that, because people are usually always trying to win, people get better at winning in the game. So this is another person, this is the person who brought up Preeminent in the first place, who that other person said was disrespecting Armada by doing that. Yeah, the first response to them is that Preeminent would get absolutely deleted by 2015 Armada. They go on to say that Preeminent could not win enough neutral interactions versus 2015 Armada for it to matter. I don't know, has the neutral game in Melee gotten better? I would say yes, definitely. And neutral game becomes harder as people get better at executing, as people get cleaner out of their movement, out of their crouch cancels, as their spacing get better as a result of them being able to control their characters better. I highly disagree that a modern day top 50 player would have like such a hard time winning neutral against Armada from almost 10 years ago. Alright, so that was the first thing. Like, this was, you know, I didn't get involved with this because, you know, that's whatever. The thing that kind of got me like confused a bit was the next thread that came up, which is question for Peach mains, current Triff or Prime Armada, right? Which is obviously a different question. Prime Armada, we first have to figure out when or what that is. If we look at Armada's results, he stopped playing in August of 2018. That's when he retired after SmashCon. And you could argue that his prime was somewhere either in 2017 or 2018. What I picked out here was I chose Smash and Splash 4, which Armada got first place at, because there are a lot of high-level players there, and Armada had a really strong losers run to win that tournament, where he had to go through everyone. And I'm gonna just like let this one set play here as I read you some more of the comments from that thread. So, of course, this is not Armada playing Peach, right? This is Armada playing Fox. Actually, it might be a better idea to start with this set, where he is playing Peach, and then later on compare that to, you know, what the modern day Peach gameplay of someone like Triff looks like. Okay, before I get any more into this, I want to say that I think Armada is definitely, like, for when he was playing, no one has ever been as dominant and as consistent as he has been. And if he were to come back to the game, I think he would definitely be like an immediate top 50 contender, like without having to do much practice maybe. And like after like a week or two of like playing against high level players again, he would improve so drastically and so quickly that, you know, he could probably make it back into the top 10 within like, I don't know, a couple months. Like within half a year, I think he could be back there. But it depends, you know, it's hard to know for sure. Maybe, you know, stuff in his life has changed. But if we say like he has an infinite amount of time to practice and is gonna give it his all, I definitely think he can do it, because he was the best the world's ever seen at a lot of stuff that Melee has to offer. Like, I think Armada, he was never really a flashy player. He wasn't super technical. Like, he had very, very good execution, very consistent execution, but he wouldn't go for like crazy technical stuff unless he really felt the need to, which worked out really well for him because his main strength was just his melee fundamentals and the way his situational awareness was just so beyond everyone else's. Like, he could recognize patterns in situations where opponents would tend to do the same things in certain matchups, in ways that no other person could. Like, it felt like in all situations he just knew what would happen next, and that makes melee so hard for the opponent to play. When you're always one step ahead, you always know what's going on, and your opponent doesn't, it becomes really easy, and you don't have to do anything fancy. You just have to position the hitbox where the opponent is going to be, and then they'll run into it. Alright, anyways, let's actually watch some of this set, and on the side I'll read out some of the comments in that other Reddit thread, which is about current Triff or Prime Armada. Okay, so first comment we see here is that Triff is very proficient at using tech that I don't know if I've ever seen Armada even attempt, but I cannot imagine Armada ever losing to a DK, let alone by SDing on his last stock, like Triff did against Junebug recently. So sure, Triff is probably more likely to SD. That's kind of like a little bit of a Triff thing. He's gotten much better at it recently, but still, like Armada, it felt like Armada never really lost stocks unless the opponent really had to put in all the work. Against Triff, you either have to put in like 500% of the work, and then like once in a blue moon, he will just gift you one. But it's very rare, and yeah, probably not something that opponents can ever rely on against him. But yes, Armada was very good at like not giving up unnecessary stocks. I think there's one situation from, I think it was Genesis 3, where he SD'd to have Mango reset the bracket in Grand Finals, where he just kind of ran off stage accidentally and then side beat, or rather he side beat to get off stage and then accidentally used his float. So Armada has SD'd in his life, of course, every melee player has, but it's probably not something that he does quite as often as someone like Triff. Okay, next answer to that question that we see on Reddit is my non-Peach main feeling says that Armada does better in some matchups. Again, this person says I can't imagine him losing to Junebug, for example. But I can't help to feel like Armada would figure out a way to exploit the matchup better. But I also think Armada would do worse in some matchups. Like, this person doubts that Armada would be 2024 Wizzy. I think these people don't really understand how much the game really has changed. Like, sure, if you're watching this 2018 gameplay, it does look very similar already, but there's a lot of stuff that people do nowadays, especially in defense and how you have to play around that defense, that isn't as obvious here. So Mewtwo King, for example, did go back to a tournament in 2021 after being inactive for a while, and he did alright, but he didn't do like super amazing, right? He had like a very close set against Frenzy, who was like a fringe top 50 player at the time, and Mewtwo King did have time to practice and like prepare for that event, and he hadn't been away from the game for nearly as long. Because if we think about it, Armada has been retired for more than 6 years already. And if we look at what some other people have said, so there's this video from Zane from 2021, so Armada had been retired for roughly two and a half years at the time, where Zane is asked if he could beat Prime Armada.
Could I beat Armada in his prime? Yeah.
Not sure if you can hear, but...
Could I beat Armada in his prime? Yeah.
He's asked, could you beat Armada in his prime? In his prime, he says yes, because that was an actual question back then, right? Like, Zane had been the best player in the world for a while at this time, but Armada had only been gone for roughly 2.5 years. So people were still like, yo, do we think Zane could beat like the best version of Armada ever? And since then, another 3.5 years have passed, right? Which is kind of crazy. Like, it's been twice as much time since then.
Called himself the GOAT, and I looked at
Zane was also asked about like if he thinks Armada is still the melee GOAT, and he talks about, yeah, like, I don't really care. There's also a tweet from our GOAT Cody Schwab that I just gotta pull out real quick here. This was a slightly different hypothetical. This was about HBox being asked who would win in a crew battle, the best 5 melee players right now, or the 5 gods in their prime. And Cody Schwab was completely flabbergasted by the fact that people think that the 5 gods would even come close, right? So this was from last year, 2023. And so the sentiment among the top level players who actually like are on that level seems to be that we think the game has changed too much within the last 5 years and beyond that the top players from back then would not be able to beat the current like super top players from today. All right, so if we know that and we have like Prime Armada, it's probably safe to say that modern day Zane, Cody, Mango probably all do really well against him. Jmook Hungrybox will probably also just beat Armada from 2018 because like Hbox was already doing well against him around that time, and you know, some people might say that Hungrybox has just gotten worse at the game since then, but I don't think that's the case. Sure, he does other stuff as well, but I don't think Hungrybox is any worse now than he was back then. I think he's significantly better, if anything. Amsa is a different question, just because people will say, oh, it's an awful matchup for Yoshi. He might not be able to do it. But I think Amsa still, like, Yoshi is such a different beast from what he was 7 years ago or 6 years ago, just because of all the work Amsa's put in. So I personally would say that all of the top 10 here, at least, are a safe bet to beat Prime Armada. And I would even go beyond that and, like, go down the list quite a bit. I would also add Junebug into that list. Like, I personally think that if we're talking about 2015 Armada, Junebug definitely wins. If it's Prime Armada, I could see it going either way. I would probably favor Junebug in that. And of course, again, I'm not saying that Armada couldn't beat him. If Armada practiced for like, you know, even current day Armada is probably like within a week of practice is going to be better than 2015 Armada by a lot. And if current day Armada, like, I'm pretty sure he does still play melee sometimes. He sometimes still plays doubles against other people. So it wouldn't take him as long as you think. But if we just go back in time to like 2018 or 2015, then I do think that these 6 years make a very significant difference. Okay, now let's watch some of Triff's gameplay as I read more of like the Reddit comments of the Armada or Triff thread. So once again, someone is saying, yo, Armada is being disrespected like crazy, implying that the obvious answer is definitely Armada and there's nothing else, right? Just what we saw right here, the taken place on Fox's up smash, and the attempted punish after. I'm not sure if that's something, you know, Armada had ever done when he was still playing. The game has changed a lot, and especially when it comes to recovery, like edgeguarding someone like Cody Schwab is a completely different world, you know, compared to edgeguarding someone like 2015 or even 2018 Leffen, right? Of course, Leffen is and was really good at all those things back then, but people get better at the game. People play a bunch against other really good players who improve, and new mix-ups get developed that if you aren't aware of them, which you aren't if you're playing in that era, then you will have a really hard time. Okay. Another response to this Reddit thread says, fuck all the fancy tech. I think this question is almost disrespectful. You gotta understand Armada had like the greatest prime ever and is arguably the GOAT. I agree with both of these things. He had probably the greatest prime ever, and there is an argument for him to be the greatest of all time, like in some way. I'm not going to open that kind of worms now. Maybe that's a topic for a later date, or for other people to argue about, because honestly, I don't really care too much. But yeah, this is about Triff or Armada. Next response saying, Prime Armada was untouchable. I don't think any Peach mains will approach that anytime soon. Alright, so it's been 6 years and you don't think it will happen anytime soon. Like, that to me just states that, you know, the person who's ranked in the top 10 right now, like Triff, who is like going close or even beating current day top 5 players, right? Like Triff does like beat Amsa like pretty regularly. Triff also has beaten Jmook this year, has beaten Wizrope just now, beats Moki, who's also like in the top 10. And you're saying that Peach doing all of that isn't really anywhere close to Prime Armada? Like, it seems a bit like questionable to me, at least, because it kind of states that Prime Armada was sure better than all this other people around him, but it's not like he had like a year where he won every single tournament, right? Like other people could still get close to him from time to time. He had stretches where he won many tournaments in a row, but you know, eventually HBox kind of like caught up, and other people were also like getting a little bit closer. It felt like Armada and HBox were just beyond everyone else for a while, but still like people weren't just letting him like win everything for free. So more discussions. One I Love Melee says, people have been led to believe that players have improved tremendously over the past 6 years. Because of this, they automatically assume that today's players are better than those from 6 years ago, so they just assume that the current Peach players are far superior to Prime Armada without actually studying or analyzing their gameplay. I think if we do actually study and analyze the gameplay, we will see a bunch of stuff that Triff does that Armada didn't do, and then the question is just, does that make a significant difference in the gameplay? And I think the answer to that is definitely yes. The question is, can Armada make up for like the lack of tech and execution with just better decision making and like smarter reads on what the opponent will do, right? Like making use of what he does best, just preempting situations, knowing how they will play out. And I don't think it fully makes up for that, especially at such a high level where his opponents that he's playing against will do the same things, right? They will also be more technical and do stuff that he's not used to from back then. And the people hit so much harder, even against a character like Peach, that it can be really hard to then, you know, just out-fundamental them when everyone has new tricks. And these new tricks will lead to bigger openers than, yeah, what's going on right now. Cool, okay. So what do you think? This is such a contentious topic, and I was just surprised by how much people believed in Armada. And I love Armada, he's my GOAT, like as, you know, just like vibes based, not like, you know, saying he's my GOAT of Melee. Just, I love the guy, and I think if you played Melee again, it would be one of the 10 best players in the world within like his first year of playing. But I think if we really just go back in time to 2015 or even 2018, then I think someone like Triff easily has the edge. I also think that the majority of top 50 ranked players from 2024 would be heavily favored against 2015 Armada at least. Against 2018, I think it's a different thing because, you know, that was a time where UCF had been introduced for a while, and so just the way people moved had changed. But yeah, I still believe that most of the SSBM ranked summer of this year would do well against 2018 Armada. Would they beat him every time? Probably not. But I think there's a lot of people here where I think they would go even or be favored. Like the top 30, I think, has a really good shot against him. Cool, yeah, what do you think? Once again, I think Armada's my GOAT. I think he could come back anytime and become one of the best because that's what he did for such a long time. He was dominant for years, so it shows that he can adjust and like improve alongside everyone else. And it's not that hard to just, you know, start playing again nowadays and pick up on the stuff everyone else has figured out and then, yeah, become the best again from there. But saying that, you know, Armada from 2018 is far beyond what Triff is doing nowadays, I think that's kind of ridiculous.